Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro, and today we're drinking a new Riff single barrel that I helped pick with Vine and Table. What's up guys, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you so much for watching, liking these videos, subscribing, sharing them with your friends, and even joining me on the Patreon. Any way you guys can help support the channel is incredibly helpful. On that note, right before we get started, I want to ask real quickly, if you have a Michter's Toasted Barrel Rye or a Michter's Barrel Strength Bourbon, please reach out to me. I need those two pours to make a very cool series of videos that's coming this December. So the Michter's Toasted Barrel Rye or the Barrel Strength Bourbon. Hit me up, let me know. I'd love to have a sample of those and make a really cool video series. Today we're trying a pick that's pretty fun for me personally because I was a member of the selection committee. This is a Vine and Table single barrel bourbon selection. Usually when you do a barrel pick with New Riff, you go down to the distillery in Newport, Kentucky, and it's a really cool process. They do a really good job with their barrel pick program. They essentially hand you a book filled with different types of tasting notes and barrel numbers beside them. You pick several different ones that sound good, and then you taste them and figure out what pick you would like. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we weren't able to go down there to the distillery. So this time there was a representative from New Riff that brought the whiskeys to Vine and Table, and we did a barrel pick there. Nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. I had a good time trying the different selections, pulling out different tasting notes, seeing how my notes compared to their notes. That is part of the thing that's unique about New Riff, or at least unusual, is they provide you those tasting notes to help you make your selection. I'm not sure if I like that or not. I'll give you the tasting notes on this barrel before I taste it again today. But it's a fun process, definitely worth doing if you get a chance to go on a barrel selection, and I'm just kind of a big fan of New Riff in general. I like the way they do things. Now, New Riff was founded in 2014 by two guys, Ken Lewis and Jay Arisman. I think I'm saying those names right. They actually met at Party Source, which is a liquor store in the area, and decided to go in together to work on a whiskey project. Before they had their own distillate together, they actually created a brand that a lot of people know called OKI, which stood for Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana. They were sourcing MGP distillate at the time and were trying to sort of build a brand and build recognition while they were still trying to fund making their own distillate. A lot of people do that. That's a very common practice. But one of the things that they did that I really respect is they didn't continue making OKI. Now, you may see OKI out there on the shelves available today, but it's not the same OKI that was being made at the time. I think it's owned by different people, in fact. But OKI began as a brand to fund the New Riff distillery creation and then was intended to die. This particular barrel, like all the New Riff stuff, is non-chill filtered. It's a sour mash process to make the bourbon. And, you know, that just adds some consistency. I think I've gotten into sweet versus sour mash in the past. I won't get into that much more here. But it's a process that's very, very common. Most bourbon, in fact, is sour mash bourbon. Unless you see it stated otherwise, you could probably count on it being sour mash bourbon. Now let's talk about this pick. I worked with Joseph and a couple other people that were there to decide which barrel we wanted. I think we tried 4 different whiskeys and sort of went back and forth on which one we liked. The blind vote actually picked this one as a unanimous winner, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. So we all kind of felt like this was heading in the right direction. This is what we were looking for from a whiskey. So that tells you something. When you get a group of people together that may have differing tastes, may like different things, and they kind of unanimously lean towards one whiskey, it's a good sign that's the winner. I'll show you a picture of the sample bottle we were given during the process. This bottle was 16-11034, and that was the barrel we ended up selecting. Now there were 4 different choices given to us, and looking through all the different notes, I kind of suspected we would like this one the most, at least I suspected I would like this one the most, and it did turn out that way. I'll give you the notes that they gave, and then I'll give you my own notes. As I said before, this was a pick with Vine and Table. Thank you so much, Joseph and Dave, for continuing to work with me. Vine and Table has helped me a lot throughout the almost year now that I've been making these videos, and I really appreciate their support. They're not paying me to say this, they're not paying me to make this video, but it's been fun to work with them. So let's go ahead and pour out this sample bottle. Oh man, I love the smell of this thing. But before I get too far into these notes, I want to also say that this bottle is available now at Vine and Table. I believe it was put on the shelves yesterday, maybe. I know it was supposed to be coming in yesterday. So this should be available now, and reach out to Joseph and he'll tell you if I'm wrong about that. If I am, sorry Joseph. So the notes they give, let me just read these off my paper here. They said orange rind, vanilla, and baking spices up front, opens up into burnt sugar and honeyed dark fruits, then a zesty rye spice finish. That sounds like a good palate to me. It's got a lot of the fruit note, it's got the honey note, it's got baking spices, rye finish. That's usually what I'm looking for in a whiskey. So let me go ahead and give this a nose and see if I agree with those notes or not. Wow, well, I tell you right off the bat, the orange stands out. I definitely get cinnamon, but it's subtle. To me, the clove is more prominent. There's sort of a cinnamon-clove combination along with the oranges. If you've ever had those little Christmas oranges with cloves in them, it kind of reminds me of that smell. If you've ever used a flame to express the citrus on an orange, it kind of has that smell too. They said burnt sugar was another note that they gave on the nose, and I can see that. It's sort of a creme brulee vibe, it may be a caramel vibe. I actually think their notes are pretty spot on this, and it's hard to say, is that psychosomatic or is that just like really me agreeing with whomever wrote these notes down. Let's see if I can't pull up some things that they don't talk about on the nose. Once you get past that orange and the baking spice, there's this sort of interesting waxy vanilla that's kind of fun. Maybe just a hint of white chocolate. And I actually get a little bit of sweet tobacco. Not a lot, but just a little tiny bit. It's a fun one. I also get a touch of spearmint, maybe a touch of like an anise. Actually, you know, the sweet and savory spices, the minty, the anise, the baking spices of cinnamon and clove, those to me are a lot more varied and nuanced than the fruit note. The fruit note is very predominantly this orange vibe, maybe with hints of other things. And the sweetness is very predominantly this sort of caramelized sugar or even creme brulee with a hint of creaminess. The vanilla, maybe a touch of waxiness as well. But that spice area is really where they're seeing a lot of variance. I could get just the tiniest hint of a floral note. It sort of smells like orange blossoms though. The fruit orange blending in with that floral note. You know, they're kind of one and the same. It's definitely this orangey, bright vibrancy. And if I go hunting for it, I can find a hint of oak and a hint of pine, but they super backseat. They're not prominent whatsoever. The woodiness in this is just not what you're digging for. All right, enough sniffing this. Let's give it a taste. Yeah. That's good. That's got a nice finish on it. I mean, obviously I'm biased about this because I helped pick it, but it is really doing some wonderful things, guys. Yeah, wonderfully sweet up front, that beautiful orange, creamy, sugary. Love the beginning. Then it very quickly kind of parlays into this nice, slightly nutty, but also really herbal. The herbal note really kind of stands out to me. Kind of a raw cinnamon. Yeah, those mid-palate, sweet, herbal, baking spice vibes are really pretty. And the finish, I can see the rye spice coming in the finish, but it's not a real kick. The rye doesn't hit you hard, it's just the rye flavor comes in at the finish. Instead of a super oaky whiskey, this has that rye spice finish, which has a little bit of black pepper, a little bit of herbal notes. So you kind of go on this really wonderful journey from nice and sweet and sugary and fruity into this herbal note, into almost, I hate to say grassy, but a grain note, this rye grain note. So it's a really nice journey in a glass. It is hitting everything I want from a whiskey like this. New Riff always does. New Riff makes amazing whiskeys. Big hats off to them. I've been hoping to actually go on a tour of the New Riff distillery and make a video series with them, but unfortunately with the current global pandemic, that's been more difficult than I would have liked it to be. So we will do something in the near future with New Riff. I'm not sure what, I'm not sure when, but we'll make it happen. I've talked with a couple of people at New Riff. We'll find a way to make something fun happen. So it's just a matter of time. So there's really sort of two key differences between their notes and mine. First key difference, I'm getting a lot more of this herbal quality. It's not a bitter herb, it's a sweet herb, but it sort of is adjacent to the sweet herbs of cinnamon and clove, your baking spices. But there's something a little bit more sharp than your standard baking spice honeyed pour, which is just like round and sweet and creamy and uninteresting in some ways. This one has more nuance, more character, but I also don't pick up a lot of the dark fruit that they mentioned in their notes. And I think, to me, that's a function of where they're pulling from their memory, essentially. When you move from that sweet orange creamy note into what I'm seeing as an herbal note, that transitionary period kind of presents like a darker fruit, maybe like a plum or something. It's really subtle to me. I don't pick that up. That doesn't trigger or fire off anything in my brain, but the herbal does. So they might be perceiving things a little differently, but I understand, I think, where they're coming from. And that's a fun exercise. It's fun to taste things you know somebody else has tasted and try to figure out what they've enjoyed, what they've pulled out of it. But this is a fantastic pour. Big shout out to Vine and Table. Thank you so much, Joseph and Dave. You're always working with me, providing me tasty opportunities like this. I'm definitely going to buy some of this. If you can't get to Vine and Table and you want a bottle of this, let me know. Maybe we can work something out. But I know that I'm going to get myself at least a couple of bottles of this because it is hitting all the right notes. Thank you guys so much. Keep drinking like professionals. Cheers.